Good afternoon and welcome to TP Talks. I'm your moderator, Jason Lockbaum, Executive Vice President for Healthcare at Teleperformance. The healthcare landscape has already shifted dramatically. Healthcare providers have had to rapidly adapt to the fast evolving needs of members and patients. To help them answer some pressing questions, I'm joined by Damo Consulting founder and CEO of Damo Consulting, Pat Monaman. We will kick off the quick introductory video to TP Talks webinar series and your host, Teleperformance. Before we begin, I want to just cover a few housekeeping items. The webinar is designed to be interactive. You will see multiple icons at the bottom of your console. If you have any questions, as we'd love to hear from you and interact with us, please submit them in the Q&A window. Do this anytime during the conversation and we'll address them during our designated Q&A session towards the end. Access the Learn More widget for more resources. You can access relevant resources in the resource widget to the right of your screen. And should you have any technical issues, please click on the help link. It's in the box that looks like the question mark. To introduce our featured guest speaker today, Patty Padmanabhan is the founder and the CEO of Damo Consulting, a digital transformation and growth advisory firm focused on the healthcare sector. He is the author of a best-selling book, Healthcare Digital Transformation, How Consumerism, Technology, and the Pandemic Are Accelerating the Future. Patty is a widely published thought leader on technology-led transformation in healthcare. He is the host of a widely successful podcast, The Big Unlock, which is now in its fourth season. Welcome, Patty.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
With the pandemic behind us, and as the post-pandemic world takes shape, we are noticing an increasing focus by healthcare providers implementing a digital front door strategy. There is a clear focus on healthcare organizations to engage with patients from the onset, assessing needs and advising on treatment and care. Patty, can you share insights on what the new norm is and what is the future of healthcare?
Thank you, Jason. We saw the pandemic as a forcing function a couple of years ago, and we saw a significant acceleration in the adoption of digital health and digital modalities for care delivery access. What we've seen 2 years on is that there's a lot of technologies that have been put in place, but these technologies now need to work well together. And so a lot of healthcare organizations are looking to optimize their workflows, optimize the use of their technologies, consolidate and rationalize their platforms, and really go to the next level of digital health. And that transformation includes transformation at the back end. We're beginning to see enterprise class platforms and programs for things like cloud migration that are kicking in. we're also beginning to see that the early enthusiasm with digital health innovation is now somewhat being scrutinized carefully based on what these tools have been able to deliver and where they fit in the overall technology stack. So these are just some of the things that are going on right now. And I would argue that there is also another forcing function that is upon us, and that's the acute shortage of talent across all sectors in the economy, but particularly so in healthcare, where I think there is a real strong need for all levels of healthcare workers, not to mention technology. So these are some of the forces that are currently in play as health systems move forward and healthcare organizations move forward with their transformation programs while trying to manage all of the market forces as well.
Any advice for companies on what they should be doing to prepare themselves and what they should be prioritizing on?
You know, Jason, I think one of the first things that healthcare organizations need to do is to really do a digital maturity assessment. And what do I mean by that? You know, today, digital transformation is a program that has been launched and is in different stages of progress in different healthcare organizations. We've come up in our firm with a 4-stage maturity model that really helps health systems understand and appreciate what maturity looks like, where they fit within a model such as this one, and what are others, where do others fit in this model? And I'll briefly talk about this, and those who are interested can actually download a white paper that describes this in great detail. There's a QR code here. But really, it's a 4-stage model where each stage builds on top of the previous stage. Health systems in maturity model 1 are essentially health systems that are looking at their EHR, their electronic health record platforms, as the primary source of all digital enablement choices. Now, as you can imagine, that can be somewhat limiting, and you tend to miss out on enterprise class platforms or digital health innovation in the market. Organizations in Model 2 look beyond their EHR platforms, especially for things like digital front doors, telehealth, access to care, and also for aspects of remote care, remote patient monitoring, home health, and so on. When you go further up the maturity model, organizations in Model 3 will typically assign and allocate a full-time chief digital officer role to drive all of these digital priorities. Still, they're focused mostly on access and care delivery enablement, not so much at the back end, which is still run by the CIO. The most mature organizations, which are the ones in Model 4, are the ones that are taking a comprehensive view of digital transformation. They typically will have a board-level budget approval for a multi-year transformation program. It's typically a group of senior executives collectively driving the program. They'll typically have a handful of strategic enterprise-class platform relationships, including EHR, but they also have a way to harness digital health innovation in the market, all the startups that are out there building innovative point solutions. Plus, they will have typically a really advanced data and analytics program that drives the digital transformation forward. So these are some of the attributes of the different organizations in different stages. And we recommend all of our clients and even those who are not our clients to really take the time to do a maturity assessment, because that gives you a baseline from which you can then determine what your investment priorities need to be for your organization, for your market, for your patients, and for your providers.
And do you find that with the current environment, with resources as challenges, do you find that the transformation needs are becoming more prevalent across the healthcare landscape?
Certainly. I think technology is a way to address the current crisis and labor shortage crisis. Now, as far as digital health and digital transformation is concerned, a lot of the digital health enablement took place in response to consumer needs and provider needs and marketplace needs. And now we're in a position to look at all of these technology investments to assess whether they can actually alleviate the ongoing labor shortage. So a great example of that is the use of automation technologies, for instance. Things like RPA or even other kinds of technologies, voice enablement in a clinical context. We're seeing voice recognition technologies being used in doctor-patient encounters. They're being used in the context of remote care and home health and so on. And there are other automation technologies that are coming in to potentially alleviate the shortage in labor. So we think that there are certain things that are going to accelerate, even things like advanced analytics, which help you to really target your patient population and your member population in a way that allows you to be very, very targeted about your interventions that can save you time and resources. They're all in play right now.
What would be your advice to those companies and what they should be doing at this point to prepare themselves, and how should they prioritize?
Well, the prioritization is really something that, like I mentioned, they can look at their maturity assessments, but really the way you want to prioritize is by looking at your maturity level and then mapping that to what your organization and your marketplace needs. So a way to go about prioritizing your investments is to look within your organization, engage all of the senior stakeholders within the organizations across functions to get a really good sense of what the organization feels is important for the future state and what is, more importantly, a near-term priority. And then you map it to what your patients and your caregivers are telling you. Right? Patients are now putting a lot of expectations on healthcare organizations. Everybody wants a mobile app, just as an example. They want to be able to schedule their own appointment. They want to be able to do everything online. They want to be able to do their visits through virtual consults and so on. A lot of this has become table stakes, Jason, but there's a lot that is still unclear. And so a good way to look at it is how do you prioritize these investments, but when you also make sure that infrastructure-wise and organizational readiness-wise, you are really in a place to make these investments and drive these investments forward. One of the things that we see very often is that organizations make their choices about what kind of digital access tools they need to deploy or virtual care they need to deploy, but they haven't really carefully assessed their own readiness, both from an IT infrastructure standpoint or from a resourcing standpoint, because there's only so many things you can do in a day, right? And there's only so much you can do with your current state of infrastructure, which is where you really need to start having a holistic view of what your readiness needs to be to drive your priorities. But make sure that you've got the right priorities, make sure you're phasing them out properly, and then make sure that you're able to execute on them.
Great, thank you. Now that you've shared your insight on what the future of healthcare looks like, let's focus on the role of the digital health and transformation. With healthcare in general becoming more reliant on advancing technologies, where do you see it having the biggest impact on patient care in the next few years?
I think patient care is going to follow tried and tested principles of consumer-oriented businesses going forward, because so far, patients have not been served up with the kind of high-quality consumer engagement experiences that they've gotten used to from the likes of Amazon and Apple and sectors like hospitality and personal finance and banking and so on. Healthcare is catching up, but the good news is it's catching up fast because consumers are creating a demand. Ultimately, it's market forces that drive priorities. And so far, healthcare has not had a need to do that. But if you look at what's happening in the market, there's a perfect storm of competitive forces. There are digital health and digital-first companies that are coming for the primary care market. There are big technology firms entering the space, Amazon being a notable one. You've got non-traditional players coming into traditional healthcare. You think of the Walmarts, Walgreens of the world. And when you put all this together, the common factor is that everyone's trying to attract patients by appealing to them through consumer-oriented strategies, whether it is to target them with marketing campaigns or whether it is to have better communication tools or engagement tools, whether it is to serve them with mobile apps and all kinds of other digital engagement opportunities. So if you look ahead a couple of years from now, and there's a reason our book, my last book, which is Healthcare Digital Transformation, there's a reason the subtitle of the book was How Consumerism, Technology, and Pandemic Are Accelerating the Future. We put the word consumerism in there first because we think that is going to drive a lot of the change within healthcare through just the process of marketplace demand. And healthcare organizations are going to find that the newer players, the newer competitors that they're seeing in the market are going to approach it very much with a technology-enabled, consumer-oriented focus on healthcare. And that's going to drive everybody forward, and that's going to lift all the boats, and that's going to really be good for consumers. What's good for consumers is going to be good for the providers.
That's interesting. So when you look at the customer experience perspective, right, you see a lot of still phone, email is kind of the primary channels, right, where whether it's a member or a patient, that seems to be the means of interaction between their healthcare company, right? How do they go about approaching, right, utilizing alternative channels, right, so the member and the patient can interact in the way that they would like to be interacted with, right, versus them having just to use the phone or email? How does a company make that happen, right? What is the process?
It's a great question, Jason. I think it's important to note that there isn't one particular unique persona of consumer that everybody is addressing with the same standard approach. I'll give you an example. Last year, I did my first ever telehealth virtual consult, like many others. And what I found was that I enjoyed the convenience of doing the virtual consult from home. And I enjoyed the convenience of just being able to log on and not have to go to a clinic, especially at a time when we didn't want to go into a clinic if we could avoid it. But I also found that while the convenience was really good, the quality of the experience didn't feel a whole lot different from the standard in-person experience. So for instance, my doctor was 10 minutes late for the appointment. And this is very common. You go to a clinic, your doctor is likely to be late because he or she is talking to other patients. But if we can't even get a basic notification saying, hey, the doc's running 10 minutes late or 15 minutes late, those are table stakes in consumer experiences. And we don't have that today. Healthcare is still learning how to become a consumer-oriented industry. Now, on the other hand, technology is not the solution, nor are video visits the solution for all populations. So, if you're looking at inner city or rural populations or low-income populations where access to bandwidth is an issue, access to devices is an issue, or maybe even they don't want to be on a video call from wherever they live, you really have to find alternate ways to communicate with them. Maybe it's text messages. Emails, you mentioned emails, Jason. I had this anecdote from the CIO of a health plan out on the West Coast. He told me that they recently spent 45 minutes on a call with a Medicare member. The member did not have an email ID. And so it was a 45-minute call to get the member to set up an email ID and send them a link for a video consult so they could get on and talk to their provider. So we tend to make a lot of assumptions about the technology enablement of the different segments of the population, but really you have to look at what's right and appropriate for your population. And I think a lot of health systems are recognizing that and are making the right kinds of investments.
That's great. AI is a big buzzword, not just within healthcare, but across many, many industries. What do you see are some good examples of how AI is affecting the consumer care and the support areas within the healthcare industry and all the subsegments?
Yeah, AI has become a buzzword, just like digital has become a buzzword, or digital transformation for that matter. All my friends who are practitioners of AI, they're always quick to point out to me that we're not really in an AI era, we are more in a machine learning era. And for those who think that distinction matters, it matters. But I'll loosely, when we talk about AI, I'm going to refer to it loosely as all of the technologies that go within the broad definition of AI today. So that would be things like machine learning, natural language processing, natural language understanding, even RPA for that matter, right? So if you look at the progress of this group of AI technologies and tools, you'll find that there's been progress, but the progress is kind of uneven. Right? We see that in areas like administrative operations. So you can look at claim operations in the context of a health plan, or revenue cycle operations in the context of a health system. We see that technologies like NLP, RPA have made a great deal of progress. Just in core claims operations, it could be everything from processing the claims to identifying fraud and risk and so on. And so there's a fair amount of progress that's gone on there. Now, those are what I call low stakes use cases. If you make a mistake in adjusting a claim, it's fine. You can go back. A human can go back and correct it. But when you talk about patient care, then it becomes a little bit trickier. You really have to be careful about using AI technologies for diagnosis and treatment, and you have to have trained and experienced humans, doctors, caregivers, nurses, who are using their judgment and their experience and their intuition on top of AI tools. Now, they all appreciate how AI tools can alleviate the workload and the burden on them and act as effective decision support tools. But these decision support tools are still maturing as we speak. And there's a lot of evidence that needs to build up in core clinical areas. And I think what we're seeing is a reasonable amount of success with some clinical areas, but there are others that are going to take a while to get there. And so it's kind of a spectrum, if you will, of use cases and progress with AI and AI technologies in healthcare.
Great, thank you. I will take a minute to allow our attendees to ask any questions for Patty. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit them through the Q&A channel, and we'll be more than happy to have Patty answer those for you. Patty, we have a good understanding on the future of healthcare, the role of digital transformation. Having said that, all this is not possible without having a robust technology set up. Can you share some insights, best practices on what organizations need to do to enable them to prepare for the future?
I think organizations need to look at it in terms of their core infrastructure, the priorities for their patients and for their providers. And I always mention that don't ignore the providers, because you cannot digitally enable the patients at the expense of the providers. The providers need to be able to use the tool. It needs to be able to help them do their jobs better and more efficiently and help them be more productive. So look at those priorities. But don't forget the infrastructure. Don't forget your organizational resources and readiness. Very often, it's not so much about budgets. Yes, budgets are always a constraint. But if you know what you need to do, if you're well prepared for it, if you have a robust infrastructure and you don't have too much technical debt, you can probably make greater progress. So those are the foundational principles that I would say. And then I would say, spend time really picking and choosing your technology partners carefully, especially for long-term relationships. And, at one end, you've got your EHR platform vendors. We're not talking about, 1 or 2 year relationships. We are talking 20, 25-year commitments for the most part when you pick an EHR vendor. or a core administration platform for that matter. And then when you look at your digital health solution, that's where you get a lot of the innovation, but be prepared to assess your risks and be ready to switch, make changes, and do it on the fly without too much pain and cost. And so your technology partner selection becomes a very important and integral part of your technology strategy. And there's no one size fits all. I've seen promising startups gain a lot of traction within a year, and then next year they're gone. I've seen others that seem to be doing well for a period of time, and then all of a sudden they go away. Then I've also seen others that come from nowhere, and all of a sudden they've become the industry standard. And you have to remember too that a lot of the enterprise class platforms, all the big tech firms, Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, Amazon, they're all making big bets in healthcare. So they're making big investments in building out platforms and tools for the healthcare sector. So evaluate them and see what's the best use of those technologies and platforms in your overall technology strategy. So all of that, I think, goes into building a robust strategy. There isn't a one size fits all, but there are some tried and tested principles, and this is what actually my firm does with all of our advisory work.
Great, thank you. With advanced patient monitoring and telehealth technologies allowing for providers to reach more patients, how do they take advantage of technologies without losing the human touch of medicine and care?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a shift. If you look at the broad trends, you're certainly seeing a shift of some aspects of care, let's say in the ambulatory context, move from in-person encounters to more of virtual encounters. And those who have experienced it more or less tend to like it and stay with it. The same thing is going to happen with remote care and home health. We are already seeing technology platforms and home health programs and remote monitoring programs being rolled out and being run successfully. The technology exists, the data and analytics infrastructure and capabilities exist. What really is work in progress is this human touch that you referred to, Jason. How do you really make sure that the care experience for the patient and the provider is not compromised too much through the intervention of technologies? And that's where I think the human touch, whether it is through personalization of communication, whether it is to targeted interventions, whether it's just the periodic check-in between a patient and a provider, in addition to all of the remote monitoring and alerts and so on. And that's something that all health systems are working on. There's a balance here that we're all striving towards, but there's no doubt that technology is going to be at the heart of what healthcare looks like in future. And there's also no doubt that it's getting virtualized more and more. So eventually, a big chunk of what we experience or used to experience just a few years ago in an in-person physical context is going to move towards either a virtual context or a physical but at home context. So that's what we're heading towards.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up question to that is, with telehealth exploding because of the pandemic over the past 2 years, but it seems to start to level off somewhat as the pandemic is starting to ease. Do you foresee any additional pushes from the medical community to get further away from in-person visits and further embrace the telehealth technologies?
I think what we saw in the early stages of the pandemic was an aberration of sorts, because we saw 25, 50x increases in telehealth visits. That wasn't surprising because there was no way to do a doctor visit. You couldn't go into a clinic in the first 6, 12 months of the pandemic. So we saw a significant jump in telehealth visits and particularly virtual consults and a lot of synchronous and asynchronous communications, especially in the context of COVID, symptom triaging and so on and so forth. But we are now reaching, the telehealth visits are pulling back because we went too far to one side with telehealth. Now they're pulling back, but they're not going to go back to what it was prior to the pandemic. We're going to reach some kind of an equilibrium And so a significant chunk of all ambulatory visits are eventually permanently going to be done as telehealth visits. Is that 20%? Is that 80%? We don't know yet. It's going to be a function of what fits best for what kinds of modalities. It's also going to be a function of the changing preferences of the consumer demographics. Right? And as the population changes, as the demographics change, you might see certain preferences taking hold and becoming more and more prevalent. One thing I do know is that, providers who have gotten used to conducting their patient visits and their encounters through video consults are getting increasingly comfortable with it. And so that's a good sign. And as people become more comfortable, as workflows become more streamlined, and as the technology becomes more integrated, I think it'll become more and more natural for us to transact. Just like you don't go into a bank anymore. When was the last time you went to a bank? I mean, we don't go into banks anymore because everything we need to do with a bank, we pretty much do it. But the bank is still there if you want to go in and meet somebody. It's going to be like that.
So with those changes in telehealth and then the ongoing transformation with digital, how do leading organizations manage effectively the patient satisfaction? Did you see a major difference on telehealth scoring versus the standard customer service model? Can you provide some thoughts on that?
I haven't seen studies that compare telehealth visits to in-person visits particularly, but I have seen a number of studies that have polled the satisfaction levels of telehealth visits across populations, across the country, across different types of services. And the broad sense I get is that those who have tried telehealth and virtual visits and so on, they are broadly satisfied with it. I say broadly because the quality of the experience still needs work. We had a very low bar to begin with. Relative to that, I think we've come a long way. But we are still, we're still a long way from the bars that have been set by the best-in-class industries out there that are consumer-facing. And that's, I think, the headroom for growth.
Thank you. Just a reminder, an on-demand version will be available in the next 24 hours. If you haven't already, review your resources. They are available in the resource window to the right of your screen. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Patty.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you for having me.